and start the call. Other people might be arriving, but it is what the week between at the end of the year. So I'm actually surprised that anybody showed up, but I'm really glad that you're here. And this is the final pod support meeting for 2021. And the topic is cultivating vitality to support your integration and certification journey. And the plan is to start with a brief self-connection, followed by a brief journaling exercise, and then a very short check-in process. Probably just 2 sentences per person to maximize the amount of time for other practice. And then we'll explore some strategies for cultivating vitality. And so that's the plan. So let's just start with a brief self-connection exercise. And start with deciding whether you want to have your eyes open or closed, your choice, even your choice of whether you want to do this exercise or not. I like closing my eyes just to somehow it supports my grounding into consciousness. And to support presence, just bringing attention to my breath. And then to ground yourselves in the needs that motivate you to be here right now. What's it about for you? Then to celebrate that you've been involved in this journey for however long you have, but certainly since our last meeting that we were together, maybe for the whole year, maybe even for many years, you continue to follow a path of integration. And you stuck with it. So even in the midst of COVID and whatever personal challenges that came up for you this year, you stuck with your journey, at least to get to the beginning of this meeting. So first, hold space for your own journey and to fill in the blank in your journal with, in the midst of, what are some of the challenges that you encountered this year? In the midst of what do you find yourself right now? I'll be quiet for a couple of minutes while you fill in the blank on that sentence. And to offer some warm empathy to yourself for being in the midst of something. And then to celebrate you and the strengths that you have. What were some of the strengths that are helping you, supporting you in sticking with your journey? What are the inner resources that you can reliably call on that keep you engaged in this process? And then see if you can sum it up for yourself with one sentence. I'll put on the screen for you. In the midst of, and then fill in the blank, I rely on my strengths of. If you need more time before we do the check-in, just put up a finger that lets me know how many minutes you might need. Okay, at least one more minute, then I'll check in again. Anybody need more time? Okay. And we'll can move into a check-in, and we'll all just say our name and fill in the blank on that sentence. So it could sound something like this. My name's Jim. I'm in Maui. And in the midst of uncertainty and I can't think of an adjective, so I'll just say grief. In the midst of uncertainty and grief, I rely on my strengths of humor and gratitude. And I will call on Shoko next, if you're willing, Shoko, and then you can call on somebody as we keep going.
Hi, I'm Shoko. My sentence is, in the midst of Nvc fatigue and grief, I rely on my resources from my certification pod members, as well as my practice group, the community that I have around me. So I'm grateful, actually. How about, I don't know, Eric is my next person, so I'll just call on Eric.
Thank you, Shoko. In the middle of loneliness, I rely on my strengths of dropping into feelings, body sensations, gratitude, and calling on support. And I will call River.
Thank you. In the midst of holidays and family groups and expectations, I rely on strengths of care, presence, and humor, and support, really to help me carry through the several days I just went through with family away from where I'm living in Philly. So I'm happy to have this reflection. So Katrina, if you're on board here and can hear, I noticed you and invite you to be next.
Thank you. Pull out what I wrote here. In the midst of stress, conflict, and community breakdown, which definitely brings up uncertainty and grief, I rely on my strengths of compassion, patience, perseverance, humor, playfulness, and creativity. And I'm going to call in Celia.
Thank you, Katrina. Nice to see you.
Good to see you.
So, in the midst of fear for the safety of the world and its children, I rely on my strengths of listening to what is true for me and coming home to myself. And I'd like to call on Luciana if you're ready.
And Celia. So my name is Luciana. You can call me Lu. I'm calling in from Brazil. And my sentence is, in the midst of tension, uncertainty, polarization, tiredness, in a generous nature, and very beautiful, I rely on my strength of resilience, creativity, bridging people, and joy. Thank you. And we'll call on Kylie.
Thank you.
Have I said it right?
Yes,
Kylie?
that's correct. In the midst of COVID and all instability, I rely on my strength of sensitivity towards my own needs and increased willingness to provide self-care and self-acceptance to myself. May I call on Cheryl? Is it Cheryl? Hello.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm in California right now, and in the midst of selling a home, living in a van, traveling to find a place to call home, finding a place to home, moving back and forth. I rely on my strength of flexibility, and honestly, the biggest strength is my need for connection and shared reality with other like-minded people, and the fulfillment. So it comes down to self-care. Being with all of you, learning and growth is so fulfilling. Can't help but keep coming back and having the connection with all of the NVC tribe. And I am going to call on, let's see, I'm having a hard time with unstable. Let's see.
I think Lena's the last one, if I'm tracking it right.
Oh, Lena, I would love to hear from you. Thank you for the help, Jim.
Hey everybody, thanks Cheryl. Jim, I'm Lena and I'm calling in from Southern California. We're having rain, which is amazing. I miss rain. In the midst of my feelings of sadness and frustration, I rely on my strength of grounding and compassion for humanity and hope. And Jim, is that everybody then?
It's everybody who
who's been
was here when we started, and Jen and Rena have just shown up, which I'm really glad to see you guys. If you want to check in, we were all just filling in the blank in the midst of, and then whatever comes up for you about that. So that would be the first blank to fill in, the midst of something.
Actually, Jim, I can do mine because last time I had, yeah. So in the midst of overwhelm and overcomplicating things, that I can use my strength of asking for support. And I guess another one too is just, yeah, pause, grounding, 0 step, let go of outcome, purpose, connect with myself. Thanks.
Sweet, thanks. And Rena, are you available on this very late at night, I think, if I'm crocking the time? Do you want to check in, Rena? If you're talking, we can't hear you. There you go.
Yes. Hi. Yeah, in the midst of night, yeah, I am feeling happy to be here, and also, yeah, it was like the last call of the year, and I had missed the other calls, so wanting to be here and hoping that a different time zone means I will meet different friends, reconnect with friends from who are awake at this time. So, yeah, I'll put on my video in a moment,
Okay,
but I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
thank you. And would you celebrate one of your strengths? What's one strength that you feel like you can rely on?
Zest for learning and living.
Yeah, sweet.
NVC. Yeah.
It's so much fun for me to hear all of you because I know all of you at least a little bit, and to hear you celebrate the same things in yourself that I celebrate about you, that's very rich for me. I feel like I know you a little bit. And I think this is River's first time at this particular meeting. River is a dear old friend, We've known each other for more than 40 years, and he's a certified trainer from Philadelphia. And he is on the verge of becoming an assessor in training and helping me out with my overwhelm of folks that want to keep going on this path. So thanks for being here, River. And someone new just arrived from area code 408. Who's it? And they're gone. So maybe they were trying to call Jory.
That was just me connecting on my phone. Sorry.
Okay, cool. Got it. Okay, so anything else that anybody wants to say before we dive into the content today?
I'm tickled that Rena and I share the same initials, RD. I'm River Donovan. I never noticed it before, Rena.
Cool. And Jen has doubled herself. So hi Jen and Jen. Okay, so diving in. The one word to talk about to cultivating vitality to support your journey is grit, Grit, grit. And when I taught this class recently in China, of course, I really wasn't in China, I was on Zoom, but I was looking up, trying to figure out what the translation for grit would be in Chinese. And so I looked it up, and I tried several dictionaries, and it kept coming back with the same thing, that grit means gravel. And I thought, that's weird. How come I can't get a good translation about what this is about? So I decided to look it up in English. And I found out that in English, grit means gravel. And we have then taken that metaphor of something that's extremely durable and that can really take a pounding and take a beating, like a gravel road, and be able to sustain itself, to not fall apart in the midst of a lot of vehicle traffic and so forth. So I can understand where the metaphor came from now better. And this image I took in China at a place called Fragrant Gardens Park near Beijing. And for me, this is a great example of grit. This appears to be a beautiful plant growing in the midst of just a lot of gravel. Actually, these stones are, much bigger than they look in this photo. This gives you some idea of the scale of that plant. And this plant is growing in a vertical wall that was built hundreds, maybe thousands of years ago in the outskirts of what's now Beijing. And so that to me is grit. That is really going for the life that's possible to have and to emanate this beauty even in the midst of really harsh conditions. So we've all now been sticking with whatever the process is that we're in, whether it's a certification journey or being an assessor or whatever it is. And we've learned to rely, hopefully in a more and more conscious way, on our strengths to support us. So this is my NVC definition for grit: the capacity to sustain effort in the midst of unsatisfied needs. For some reason, there's something really attractive about how this word sounds when I say it. It kind of has the feeling of grit when I say it. So I enjoy that. And so we turned it into an acronym, GRIT, and we'll briefly touch on all four of the letters today. The G stands for growth. The R stands for renewable resources. I is integrating needs consciousness. T is take a next step. So first, a few words about growth. So what I'm noticing about the NVC community is we're becoming more and more aware of trauma and its effects, and becoming more sensitive to the fact that the folks who might be coming to our workshops or trainings or personal calls or whatever might have had trauma They might be in the midst of trauma, even as they approach us. And I really like that we're becoming more aware of that very common human condition. And NVC is really designed to help to transform that trauma into post-traumatic growth, which is a term I learned from Martin Seligman, the founder of positive psychology. And I love that NVC has got built-in processes like beneficial regret and mourning that can help us to transform trauma into growth. And I celebrate that the more I learn about NVC and integrate it more fully, that NVC can support my healing, my learning, my resilience, and support me in living a life well lived that's rooted in making life wonderful for myself and others through contribution. And I also love that Dan Gilbert points out that even in the face of terrible loss, even the death of a loved one or some kind of other personal tragedy, most of us return to a baseline of well-being within 3 months. And that can be accelerated even. I don't think there's a big hurry about that, but it can even be supported. That'd be a better word to use. It can be supported through community and spiritual clarity and the practice of NVC. And one of the things that the research showed when I was looking into preparing this a few years ago, this information, was that folks who have access to renewable resources of life-affirming emotions have more capacity to transform trauma into growth rather than into stress that can be stored in the body. So today's session is about exploring some of these renewable resources. In NVC, we focus on gratitude as like the entry point for exploring the kinds of emotions that are satisfied when needs are the kinds of emotions that we feel when needs are satisfied. And I learned from another teacher named Barbara Frederickson that there's at least 9 other emotions that are well studied that we can learn to rely on. And so today we'll be exploring all 10 of these emotions in a brief way with some journaling. And Jory came up with this acronym to describe these 10 emotions: aha, jig, lips. And the list of emotions, again, was inspired by Barbara Frederickson. And her book is called Positivity. So we'll start with the first one, the letter A. And that stands for awe. Awe is becoming increasingly more well-studied as a way to build inner resources. So I'll just say my awe story and then invite you to reflect for a minute about something that inspires awe for you. But before I do that, I would like you just to define awe in your own terms. How would you define this emotion in your own experience? What words would you use? If someone walked up to you or in a class, they said, "What do you mean by awe?" How would you describe it in a way that's consistent with your understanding? Let's take a moment and write down that definition. Yes, AWE, awe. And then consider what needs are related to that feeling for you. When you feel awe, What needs are being fed? Thanks for putting these guesses, these needs guesses in the chat. It really helped me. I was really feeling a little locked up. I couldn't find any words. And this is helping me. Thank you. And the last question we'll explore for each of these and then do a little thinking about it is, what strategies reliably generate the feeling for you? I'll be quiet for another minute while you keep considering strategies. And then one final fourth question to consider is, what feeling do you notice in your body when these needs are not being met? In other words, what's the feeling that might be the opposite of awe? What would be the signal for you that these needs are not being met, that you identified in the last step, in the second step? And I'd love to hear from a few people. And just to give a model, I'll go first. And if you'd like to speak, you can just raise your hand. We'll hear from 2 or 3. So awe for me has something, the definition is, it's a hard one for me to define. So I'm looking forward to seeing what other people come up with. But it's a feeling that I get when I see. It's like a life affirming way to use comparison. It's like I see myself as this teeny tiny part of something really vast, beyond description vast. And the needs that are related to me for that are something around transcendence, well-being, and so kind of spiritual connection. And one strategy that I can reliably count on is looking at the night sky here in Maui. We have really dark sky because we're so remote. And I can look at that dark sky and I can almost immediately connect to awe. Happens also when I'm walking in the yard and I see an interaction with a bee in the flowers or something like that. And lately we've had two wild pigs that have decided that they like hanging out here. And it's just kind of awesome that they are so trusting and they want to sniff me. A little scary too. And I'd say the signal for me that that little awe therapy might be good would be just feeling lonely, a feeling of loneliness, or that I don't matter. So who would like to share? Who'd be willing to share your experience of awe?
I can.
Great, Celia.
Go ahead, Celia. Celia.
Okay, then Lou, you're next. So for me, just kind of like what you were saying, Jim, for me is connecting with something that's larger and more powerful than my human life and my experience in this little flesh body. And the needs that are met are the need for wonder, for creativity, for connection, for belonging, inspiration, and spirituality. And the strategies that reliably generate that feeling. I might start feeling a little misty as I say this. Feeling a lot of tears come up. I think it's because I'm not connecting to these things right now. For me, nature, being in nature is a wonderful way to feel awe, from the minute to the massive, watching things grow, seeing kids who are going through trauma start to smile and laugh is something I'm constantly in awe of. Being in a group of people demonstrating for inclusivity, and the few times I have been with really big groups of people demonstrating, I'm absolutely in awe. And drag queens in pride parades, great source of awe, and a signal that I need some awe, that I'm disconnected from that is really when I just start worrying, when I start feeling worried and scared. That means, I could use a little more awe.
Thank you. Thank you, Celia. Needs met for me for vulnerability and connection. Thank you. One more. Lou, did you want to speak?
I can go. The way I understand the word I like a good word in English, but maybe something that it could bring. It's something like magic. What magic generates in me? Something breathtaking. And I can just have the feelings here upper my stomach of the belief and trust and the mystery of life. needs met by this emotion, I guess. It's trust that there is the mystery. There is beauty. There is hope. There is more than what I'm seeing. Strategies. It's actually, yeah, being in nature, but some kinds of nature, being really in very peaceful places, very natural places. Also, seeing the birds nesting at my house, it's been one of the possibilities because it seems there are families that are nesting in the same nest. There is no time off. It's a nest that has been busy for a year. This is kind of an awe for us when this bird, which we don't know if it's a female or a male, and it doesn't matter, has lost the nesting address. It seems, and we could understand it, that it was desperate, and we were kind of guiding, my husband and I. It was an odd moment, kind of connecting to other beings. And another strategy, it's for me, it's playing with kids, but really playing seriously in the play, in the game. And feelings when it's not being met, I guess this is the last question, or sensations. I guess I'm very tired. My English is going away. But you know, when it's something gets rusty, when the door makes like this, when I start getting rusty and I'm not smiling, and it's hard for me to smile and to find joy. So when I'm becoming like this, I know I need more in my life.
Oh,
Mm.
thank you.
Thank you for the possibility of expressing it.
And then the invitation just to notice how you feel after these shares, to notice how this quality of empathy in the face of positivity can move you to new sensations, new experiences. And then we'll move to hope. H stands for hope. So go through that same journaling process again. Put it up on the screen to remind you of the prompts. And I'll be quiet for 5 minutes while you do that. About 30 more seconds. So put my definition of hope in, just because I had trouble with this one, because hope seems so future oriented, and NVC is so much about presence that I thought a long time about hope until I came up with this definition, that it's a feeling that I have in the present moment when I imagine that a future is possible where more needs are met with less cost and I can do something about it. That's what inspires hope in me. Love to hear from one or two people about anything you'd like to share about hope. Go ahead, Rena.
Yeah, I was thinking about the future, but then as I was feeling hope, like, to me, it seems like hope, I feel hope when I feel my body relaxes and my breathing is slow and regular. So my thoughts are mostly about related to the present moment, because from the present, I'm flowing into, the next steps. So it's kind of, yeah, a little surprised that though it is about future, to me, it's about being present and the feeling that I have in the present. And the opposite is anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else want to touch in on hope?
I'd like to share.
Great, Cheryl.
For me, oh yeah, for me it is not about the future. And in this moment, I have hope rather than despair. So it's not something forward thinking for me. In the present moment, there's an aliveness and there's a drive and there's a willingness and a energy versus despair and giving up and blah. So it's something, a wave that is in me often, thank goodness.
Yeah, riding the hope wave. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if we were doing this as a weekend workshop, I'd hear from everybody. So I'm hungry to hear from more, but I want to make sure we get through all 10 of these. So hopefully we'll hear everyone's voice with a different feeling. The second A stands for amusement. The only positive emotion that they name parks for, amusement parks. And so be quiet again for a few minutes while you connect with your own experience of amusement, the feeling of amusement. 20 more seconds. So for me, the symptom of amusement is I feel myself smiling and my body opens up. And sometimes I just laugh. And I have three great teachers that I can think of for helping me connect with amusement. River is one of them. River and I, like I said, we've known each other for 40 years, and River has this quality of a sense of humor that really matches mine, and maybe even vice versa. So we seem to play off each other with puns and little one-liners and snarky jokes and stuff like that. And then Jory's a master in how to use amusement to break tension. So we'll be sitting there mediating with somebody, and there's this moment where maybe there's something really messy, but it seemed important for this couple to work through, and there's kind of this tension in the air, and Jory somehow finds the right thing to say that I could never. It's just not my style, but she gets people laughing somehow in that moment, and that reawakens a sense of connection and possibility. And then the other one is Marshall. Marshall had a great, he was a master of timing in terms of, I heard him say the same stories over and over and over again. And so I already knew what the story was going to be. So I started looking at why was he telling that story? And then what I noticed in kind of analyzing his training style was his exquisite use of timing. And so that he would seem to deliver the punchline. And he delivered it probably hundreds of times, but somehow he knew the right time. So any takeaways about generating or understanding this emotion of amusement that you want to share with the group? Hear from a couple of people about amusement.
Well, in this investigation of amusement, it became more to the forefront to me that muse is in there. So something about inspiration came up this time. So I'm calling it lighthearted, regenerative inspiration that that life is Leela, play. So there's something when I'm in this amusement sphere, that there's something about the playfulness of life, the ironies, the hilarious satire that I live sometimes. That comes up, and the opposite is like drudgery or criticism, something like that.
Thanks, River. Shoko.
My definition of amusement is doing something outside of my comfort zone, something unexpected. And the needs that come up for me are spontaneity, freedom, fun, diversity, and stimulus. Diverse stimulus, I think. And the strategies that I often practice to get this is going to my dance classes. And even when I'm really sad and really, really, really angry, it looks really good. The dance moves of anger actually looks really good. And so that's definitely my go-to strategy. And when the opposite of that would be numb, just feeling nothing, just no feeling, just numb would be the one. So that's it for me.
Thanks, Shoko. Yeah. So J stands for joy. What's joy about for you? About 20 more seconds for joy. So I love having all these words to describe things that have similar kind of sensations in the body, but each time I find a new word, like amusement and joy seem closely related, but they're also different. And so I equate joy with what do I enjoy? When am I in joy? And so many of the things that we've already talked about stimulate joy in me. I'd love to hear from you. What's some reliable, especially reliable strategies for generating joy for you? I just want to share one. I'm not so sure that I recommend this because it's extremely addictive, but my son's girlfriend told me about TikTok. And because, I'm of a different generation than would be the TikTok generation, right? But so I knew what TikTok was, but I never really got on it. And now it's a go-to strategy for connecting to joy when I only have 2 minutes or 3 minutes. I can pull up my phone and find just the wildest, most like these gymnasts that can throw each other up into the air, and they do it in slow motion. I just feel myself smiling, and it somehow is bathing my body in life affirming chemistry of connection and oxytocin and inspiration and so forth. So what works for you to generate joy? And I'm totally
Yeah. Hey, Jim.
Yeah, I just want to highlight what Celia said, that joy creates the capacity for me to be with difficult things. And that just underlines the whole point of the class, because all 10 of these emotions are about generating capacity to be with more difficult things. And I'm sorry I interrupted with somebody. Who was that, you, Katrina, or was that somebody else?
Hey, Jim.
Okay.
Katrina, were you going?
I'd be happy to go after you.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to say that for me, joy is a presence with appreciation. And I can reliably generate joy by being in nature and reading and writing and listening to music and laughing and singing and dancing.
Thanks, Lena. Katrina?
Yeah. For me, joy is a radiant gratitude and aliveness. And I found that the easiest way for me to generate joy is through ecstatic dance, finding some music that I love and just letting my body move deeply to that. So much so that it was my what's it called, those those like lifesaver, those rings that you throw in the water for people if they're drowning. I definitely had a period of drowning in my life, years of pretty intense darkness, and the ecstatic dance and being able to generate that joy was what helped me remember that life is beautiful and that I love myself. It was that potent a practice.
Sweet. Really enjoying all of your sharings. And I'm worried that we won't get through all 10 of these, so I'm going to buzz through and move to interest. The first I is interest. And so be quiet again for you to think about what interest means to you, how it relates to feelings and needs in your own direct experience. Interest. About 30 more seconds. So for me, interest is a really reliable, positive emotion, and I see it as like nutritious food for my amygdala, because the amygdala is often gets this bad rap of what is alert to the presence of danger, and but the other part of the amygdala's function is to be on the alert for novelty. What interests us as a human being, because something that we see could be either threat or opportunity. So the amygdala is designed to suss out threats and opportunities. And interest for me is related to opportunity. What's something that's interesting? How might that serve me? Is that news article going to give me some new information that I can use to share with my clients or my friends, or just to connect with Jory? Or so what's it about for you? How do you utilize the feeling of interest to support yourself in the midst of whatever is going on in your life?
Hi, Jim, is it okay? Yeah. So interest is one that I can get. I notice I'm like, oh yeah, it feels like I need to be careful because I can get discernment. So I'm typing them out for the first time. There we go. So I wrote definition of curiosity, a longing to know, to discover, searching for answers, teachable. And I just wrote that amygdala thing, nutritious food. That's good. What needs are related to that feeling for me? Learning, also flow, freedom, space, time. And for me, discernment, wisdom, and trust need to kind of be in there to keep it right size, I guess you could say. And what strategies reliably generate this feeling for me? Everything and anything. If I pick up any book and anything I don't already know, I want to know more about, like, that lifelong learning part of me. Just I have a lot of fun with that. And when these needs are not being met, what I feel in my body, I guess what comes to me more is, what does it feel like when I'm worried there's too much of this? Is like constricted, I guess. And I can't imagine not having them met. It, like, deadness, I guess, or lifelessness. So maybe part of my needs are aliveness. Thanks.
Sweet, thanks, Jen. One more about interest. I'm so interested to hear what you might have to say.
Yeah, Jim, I wanted to add that to me, this is one of my big takeaways from NVC is curiosity. I notice I have a lot more curiosity about what's going on for me and what's going on for somebody else. And doing this exercise on interest, I immediately thought of curiosity as a strategy to generate interest. Yeah,
Great. I love the internet. I love Wikipedia. I just love following these little rabbit holes. It's like the life-serving use of some of these algorithms can be kind of fun. G, of course, is about gratitude. I think we're so well grounded in gratitude in the NVC community. I'll let this one be homework for you to think about. I think it's really still useful to go through the four questions and consider what it means to you, so that you could teach from that place of really being grounded in your own direct understanding and experience of gratitude. And the one training tip that I have collected over the years is if I have only a brief period of time to talk about nonviolent communication, this is what I usually talk about. I talk about gratitude because I want to leave folks hungry to learn more about NVC and to actually have a direct experience of NVC. And gratitude is the way that I've discovered that works well for me to convey that. Then L stands for love. There's already a key distinction in the CPP about love. And so this is you getting to explore the part of the key distinction about love as a feeling. So now we're not talking about the need for love or love as an action, but the feeling, the body generated and connected feeling of love. What's that about for you? About 30 more seconds for love. Curious to hear what's alive in you about this life affirming feeling. I want to just say one lesson that I learned a few years ago when I started studying positive emotions. I already mentioned Barbara Frederickson and her book Positivity. The other book that I've read of hers is called Love 2.0. And I recommend both books. And there's lots of takeaways from Love 2.0, but the one that I want to offer you today is about this notion. I think she calls it a micro moment. So this is a strategy that you can use to generate and notice these really teeny tiny moments of love. Either when you create the love by maybe doing an act of kindness, an act of empathy, something like that, and then you can notice that this feeling just kind of comes up. You get to savor it for a second, and then it disappears. It's true of all emotions, but with these life-affirming emotions, it seems important to me that we learn to pay attention and fine-tune our awareness for the presence of these micro moments of love. And it can happen when we're either in the act of giving or in the joy of receiving something. So anybody else have anything you'd like to share about love, the feeling of love from your exploration? Go ahead, Rena.
I think, feeling of love is when I feel the lightness and fullness in the moment from a sense of safety and gratitude for being alive, and also being fulfilled and held or holding as precious. So there's a sense of awe, and I think the need met is of living interdependence, the felt sense of how interdependent and interbeing we are. And the strategies are about, openness to time in nature, or touching, warmth, cooking special meals, listening to someone's dreams and aspirations, and imagining ways for the next step, and being open to support if needed. But really believing in someone, and inherent life that flows through us. And the opposite feeling is disgust and disillusionment.
Thank you, Rena. Welcome, Sage. We're in the middle of exploring all these positive emotions. And right now we're just talking about love. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to share because it was a little bit of a pleasant surprise with strategies. Well, one, the obvious one for me is just being around babies and children, just automatic. My total experience of love and joy. Honesty is one that came up for me as a strategy to feel love, and asking for what I want and need, even when I don't receive it. The act of asking for it generates an experience of love for me, for myself, and for other. Service to those I care about. I really enjoy the holidays, making things for my family, meaningful gifts, quality time. Self-care is paramount. Self-empathy practice, and being present and pausing. Those are all strategies for me.
Sweet. Thanks, Sage. Glad you're here. Glad you shared. So the second I in our acronym is inspiration. So we'll take a few minutes and explore inspiration. Another 30 seconds or so. Love to hear just a couple of strategies that might inspire us to do what you do that works for inspiration. What's something that you can reliably count on that inspires you? Anybody got something that you want to share? Yeah, go ahead, Lena.
Yeah, hi. Oh gosh, I love this. I'm noticing a pattern here, Jim, with all of these that I'm writing the same things over and over. And so I'm appreciating that. And again, with inspiration, I'm noticing what reliably generates it, is pausing and noticing what's alive for me, having gratitude practice, and shifting my focus to naming or celebrating what's working.
Nice. Somebody else got something inspiring, inspirational practices you want to share? Go ahead, Celia.
So for me, anything that I perceive as beauty, so being, in nature, in a beautiful garden, like seeing moss, seeing just anything that really sparks that somebody did with care. So like seeing food that somebody made really carefully and beautifully, and watching any of those baking shows where they make incredible things that I have no desire to make, but they're fabulous. Those kind of things I'm just like, wow, yeah. And it's got that spark for me. It also is tied with interest. And these things create that little spark of agency that I want to do something more. I want to do a little more in that direction. And usually they're all things that are like, they're pretty simple, but they connect me to the joy of just being a living, breathing human in this world.
Yeah, sweet. Love that. I'm worried we're running out of time, so I'm just going to say the last two and leave them as homework and just say a little bit about the last two. The second one, the second to the last one is pride of accomplishment. I think in Barbara's book, she just called it pride, but there's a little bit of a I don't know, a taint to the word pride, like because you're puffing yourself up. It seems to be related to ego. But for me, this is related to savoring an accomplishment that I like. At the end of this meeting, I'll have a sense of pride because I'll hear feedback from you that you liked it, or feedback that you didn't, but I still finished it. And so just to take a moment after each completion to savor the completion. So that's what pride of accomplishment means to me. And I have a new habit, relatively new habit. I've been doing it for a couple of years from now, but a to-do list is a common strategy to kind of motivate us to do things that are important to us. And I include on my to-do list a done list. So the things that I do that didn't make it to my list, but that I did anyway, I'll go ahead and write them down because I did them and they matter. I did it because it was in the service of some need. So it was, I accomplished something. And so even when yeah, go ahead.
Jim, can you just repeat that because it interests me deeply, and I missed it.
Yeah,
I didn't understand.
I will
what do you include
down
in the list?
Yeah, I will write down something that I have done that wasn't on my list. So, for example, if like I very rarely put on my to-do list to gather the gardening, the greens that we use for our breakfast every morning. It's kind of a chore. But when I'm needing a little shot of dopamine or whatever, then I'll write down I got the greens. I supported Jory in making breakfast. And I'll just put that on my to-do list and then check it off. And so it's a way of acknowledging myself for the doing and to cultivate a quality of being with the doing rather than just doing it mindlessly. Does that help? Yeah. And then the S stands for serenity. Another word for serenity would be inner peace. So developing some kind of a practice that cultivates peace of mind, serenity. So for most people, maybe it's meditation of some sort, or walking, or yoga, or there's lots of reliable strategies, I think, for serenity. And so what you've done to do, yeah, I like that ta-da list. Thanks, Jen. I now have a name for what I do, a ta-da list. Ta-da, I did that. So what you've all done is you've written a handbook for grit. You now have 10 chapters with reliable strategies to help you get through the coming year of challenges. We have no idea what challenges we'll be in the midst of over the next 12 months, or even the next 12 seconds. But now you have a whole guidebook to support yourself and your clients, friends, and other support systems. So these could be like a resource journal for you. The other way that you can utilize this is when you're noticing some of those feelings that let you know that your needs have not been satisfied. Maybe you're feeling numb, or some quality of grief or despair. You can always pull out your gratitude journal or your inspiration journal, or this handbook. Pick out the feeling that you wish you had. Maybe I'm really needing some inspiration. So you open the page to inspiration and you see what worked for you in the past. And you say, oh yeah, so that motivates me to try it again now, or to mourn. So even mourning, I think, is an inspirational process. So that relates to taking a next step. So when you notice yourself, that's be the T in grit. So when you notice yourself feeling a feeling that that's inhibiting you somehow from your mission, or taking steps to fulfill your vision, or to get something done that's important to you, because you're just languishing, somehow you're just feeling a little low energy, then you always now have a new next step. So the whole exercise was about integrating needs consciousness, the I part of grit, that as we attune our experience to needs satisfied and unsatisfied, either in ourselves or in others, then somehow it supports a quality of energy to then be able to take the next step. I remember Marshall saying over and over again that we were designed. I can't remember if that was the word he used, but it's the word that I used to interpret what he said. That we were designed to get needs met. That once we notice an unsatisfied need, our brain automatically gets busy coming up with strategies to fulfill the need. So just take a moment of maybe 1 minute of silence or writing to think about a next step that you are willing to say out loud to everybody here, that you imagine will support you in your journey towards integration and certification, if that's your desire. But what's one next step that you're willing to say out loud? We'll do that as our final checkout round.
I would say reaching out and celebrating small celebrations in connection. I like to support my own inspiration and learning. Thank you.
And can you think of, I want to just push on it just a little bit if you're willing, Eric, who is one specific person that you will reach out to about what specifically?
I almost said Lori Mansky, Lori Delaney, and I think submitting my KD today. My KD is to you and Roger today. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jen, are you willing to go next? If you're not, you can just pass and we'll come back to you. Jen and then Katrina.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So something that I can do to support next steps is, yeah, I feel this, so yeah, in doing that self-assessment, I ran into some edges again, but I did find a little habit loop or something in self-empathy that I can get help with. So I will reach out to, it's hard. But yes, so actually I am, Lena, I'm gonna reach out to you. I'll inspire you. Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful, thanks, Jen. Katrina, then Rena.
I am so deeply longing for clarity and efficiency on the path to certification. And so my next step is to reach out to my mentor, Jim Mansky, and schedule a 1-hour phone call with the intent of designing a really clear path from the pre-assessment phase that I'm in to certification. Thank you.
Sounds like a great next step. Be fun for me too. Rena, then Lou.
Yeah, I am all set for the final assessment, and it seems so close and yet so far, you know. So yeah, I love the energy that I received from each one of you. And my next step is to reach out to you, Jim, to invite you and Ramanusha to a meeting with my assessor's team to co-create, you know, the event, and invite all of you to help me through it, to celebrate with me. Yeah. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. I look forward to that. Lou and then Shoko.
I was thinking of something of this savoring. Savoring, one of the things is savoring the path that I have done so far. So I think it's one of the things that I would like to savor it. And the next step, the very next step, is to send you a message here now, Jim. But I see that there is a list before me to schedule the meeting with you and River. So I have 2 people here that I have to schedule a meeting with from the next week on.
Super.
Yes.
Shoko and then River.
My next step would be fill out that Google sheet that Jim just sent us. And I'm not sure what to do, but I have this huge resistance. And I have a week off this week, so I'm gonna find a time to either write something and submit something to Jim and actually sit with this resistance with a person that I know and make handouts. I make handouts when I'm stuck.
Sweet. Those creative juices flowing. Wonderful. River, then Celia.
Yeah, so I'm in the next step of inviting inclusion as a assessor in training. So I'm going to locate the folder where I have materials about that and read the materials and then follow intuition as to what's next.
Wonderful. Celia, then Lena.
So for me, in terms of my NVC next step, I'm really wanting simplicity in my life. I just feel it's such a big need right now. And I want to start writing more, and I want to start writing, like finish up the KDs. And also I just want to write more poems and more like fun, goofy things. And I also want to read the NVC books that are sitting, waiting for me. And this is something I want to do, but I want to do it now, but maybe at 7 o'clock tonight or 8 o'clock, I won't, is watch less television. That's like it's a little love-hate relationship there. So thank you.
Thank you. I resemble those remarks. Lena and then Sage.
Regrettably, I resemble them too. Yeah, I'm writing every day and I'm just really noticing how stuck I am with doing the tasks in the CPP. And so my intuition and what I'm declaring here to all of you is that I'm going to do some type of like creative art project that's my own project that is for the purpose of revealing and clearing that stuck energy.
Yeah, cool. And Sage, are you here?
I am here. Yeah, well, I've taken a next step. I just chatted to two people directly, Rena and Celia, to see if I can add them to my outreach circle with my NVC outreach circle. And my next step is to continue with my vision mobilization buddy. We meet weekly, and I'm going to continue working with her to make agreements with incapacity.
Wonderful. Thank you. There's the form, the link to the form in the chat, if you haven't done it yet. It's so rich for me to read these forms. I haven't quite figured out if anybody is a Google form expert and can help me to figure out how people can access their own forms. And so there would be a little button that we could add at the end, send me what I wrote, or I don't know how to do it yet. So I haven't figured that out. That'd be one thing. I'd like to make this form more useful for people to be able to access and update later. And another step for me, I mean, one of the things I've learned from doing this monthly series, this last month in December, is that the CPP as it's currently designed is really supports self-responsibility, and it you really have to create your own structure, and not all of us are wired up to do that, and yet we need so many more people offering NVC in the world. So I'm excited about what Katrina said, that she wants to get more clarity on specific steps. I heard that from at least 2 other people, 1 in each meeting. And so I'm hoping to have, I'm claiming that I will have meetings with a few candidates to design structures that will support the rest of the people that will be engaging with the process, so that you can have like a timetable, anyway, you get the idea. So I'm excited about developing that and getting support, not trying to do everything by myself.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Rena, for that, and Katrina. So with that, I think we're pretty much done for today. We'll be back next year with another series. If you have specific requests that you imagine would help you in your journey for the next year, please write to me and let me know exactly what topics you think would be most supportive. And I'll figure out how to put that into the curriculum for next year. And there'll be a copy of this this recording will go up on the website soon on pathwaystoliberation.com. So thank you all for being with me this year and walking on the path with me, and I look forward to our next connection. and whether it's in a group meeting or one-on-one or some other magical way. And may you all stay safe in the midst of whatever the midst is for you. Aloha, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Jim.
Jim.
much,
Thank you,
Jim.
everyone.
Thank you, Jim.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Everybody being here.
Thank you for bringing in
Happy-
support too to help you. I'm really appreciating that you're bringing in folks to help you. That's great.
All right. Aloha. Bye-bye.